Portland, you got no safe place. This is America. Get out if you don't like free speech. 95439 from the Metropolitan Police Center. Death to the enemies of America. Leave this country if you hate our freedom. Death to anybody. You call it terrorism, I call it patriotism. You hear me? Die.
A hate-fueled tirade on a Portland train ending with 2 brutal deaths.
One was stabbed in the neck and the other in the stomach.
Portland police say late yesterday afternoon, 3 men were stabbed by a man yelling ethnic and religious slurs.
I was so scared.
He was saying something about America. This is a free country.
Police say the suspect, identified as 35-year-old Jeremy Christian, harassed 2 girls, one wearing a hijab.
2 younger girls, believed to be Muslim.
2 people who came to the girls' defense were stabbed to death. They've been identified as 53-year-old Ricky Best and 23-year-old Talesian Meshi. On Facebook, Meshi's mother posted, "He was a hero and will remain a hero on the other side of the veil."
It's horrific. And there's no other word to describe what happened.
One witness says this video shows the suspect's confrontation with police before his arrest. Christian has an extensive criminal past, including convictions for kidnapping, armed robbery, and weapons possession. He also has a history of hate speech. On his Facebook page, he praises Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh, calling him a true patriot. Just last month, Christian was at a free speech rally, armed with a baseball bat and apparently giving Nazi salutes.
I'm not here to join anyone. I'm here to be heard. This is a freedom of speech rally.
The Portland attacks come on the first day of the Muslim holy month Ramadan.
It was incredibly shocking.
Muslim community leader Harris Zafar says Portland is a tolerant city of 50,000 Muslims, not used to this level of hate.
2 people lost their lives, and two families now have an empty seat at the dinner table.
Christian was booked on multiple charges, including aggravated murder and attempted murder. He's being held without bail. Steve Patterson, NBC News.
We are learning more about the 2 men who died in Friday's attack. They're 2 people, a 53-year-old Army veteran and father of 4. The other man, a 23-year-old recent graduate of Reed College. The victims are being remembered as heroes for intervening, trying to stand up for passengers and fight against hate. Last night, a candlelit vigil was held in Portland honoring them. A 3rd victim who survived, a 21-year-old, is recovering in the hospital. His mom spoke out yesterday about his injuries. Here's what she said.
They missed the jugular by a millimeter. They cut one of the carotid arteries. And he will have some paralyzation.
There's been an outpouring of support for the victims on social media, and the governor of Oregon praised their actions, speaking out in a press conference. Here's what she said.
Let's not let hate and fear divide us. Instead, let's take the example of the Good Samaritans who sacrificed their lives for the safety of others.
And the suspect is going to be in court on Tuesday, and authorities say he could face additional charges once he's before a grand jury, guys.
All right. Dan Lieberman, we appreciate the update. Thank you.
Got it.
All of us standing here this afternoon are committed to ensuring that the killer will face justice. I want to reassure our neighbors and our fellow Portlanders, to those in the Muslim community who have just begun observing Ramadan, know that Portland stands by you. To our immigrant communities, you have our support. We will do everything in our power to ensure that people of all races and ethnicities are safe in our city. There is too much hatred in the world right now, and far too much violence. Our current political climate allows far too much room for those who spread bigotry. Violent words can lead to violent acts. All elected leaders in America, all people of good conscience, must work deliberately to change our political dialogue. We cannot abide bigotry or racism or xenophobia. We can never tolerate violence. We have to come together and love one another.
What happened yesterday was a crime of hate, and it is absolutely unacceptable in our Oregon. I am so heartbroken by the hate, violence, and the loss of 2 brave, compassionate lives yesterday evening. I want to send my deepest condolences to the families of the Good Samaritans and to the 2 women who were the target of the suspect's vitriol.
About the exciting things happening at the South Portland Police Department.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
So we're here to talk about this online mapping that's available for South Portland. Could you describe it a little bit?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, we just released it to the public. What it is we've partnered with a company called Bear Analytics. They offer this online web-based application called Raids Online, and it's a if I can editorialize from it, it's a really cool tool for the public to use. It really will allow the public the opportunity to get online and in a map, kind of a visual depiction, it will show them where the crime is happening in the city. If they're interested in their specific neighborhood and where the crime is happening there, they can narrow it in and zero in on that particular area. And again, it really gets the information out to the public, which is I think where that needs to be.
Well, how does that help in the enforcement of law and in doing your job?
Yeah, I think what we're hopeful to see is that the public having that awareness of where the crime's happening. If they know that there's a series of residential burglaries in their neighborhood, car breaks that may be happening, that they're going to be more aware, they're going to be more vigilant, and hopefully they're going to be more apt to call the police department if they see something suspicious going on in their neighborhood. So we do anticipate this being something that, another way for us to partner with the community to make sure we can kind of hopefully reduce crime.
How did this come about? Have you seen this happen, or has somebody looked at this in other communities and seen what happened, the results of it?
Yeah, there have been, I believe there's 6 communities in the state of Maine so far that have partnered with Raids and offer that service. Spoke with people in those other communities, and they have found it to be a benefit. The other thing that the actual application does that is beneficial for the residents is it will email them information, whether they can set it up to do it daily, weekly, or monthly. So if they live at a particular address, they type in their home address, maybe it's their business address, they can put that information in, and if there's crime reports that are being taken within a certain distance from that address, the system will actually email them the information on that report.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. My first impression in hearing about it is, in one way, it's really good to have that information out there and available to the general public. But isn't there any fear or worry that people might become overly worried about seeing where the crime is and how much crime is actually happening?
And there are some trade-offs. I mean, part of that is the information is limited. The information that you get when you look at that is the date and time that the crime report was taken, the nature of the crime report, whether it's a theft or a burglary, something along those lines. The fact of the matter is South Portland is a very safe community. We just feel that the information that will be provided by this application will be more of a benefit to the community than a hindrance. The other thing that we did take into account during this is there are certain crime types that we do not upload a report to Raids Online, such as sex crimes and things of that nature, where and the other thing that the application does is it doesn't give a specific address of where a particular crime is. So again, we're trying to maintain the anonymity of the victims that are reporting these crimes too.
Right, and then also there are reports of crimes. They're not actually adjudicated and convicted, so it doesn't necessarily mean that those crimes actually necessarily took place or that you know who the perpetrator is. Is that correct?
Correct. There's no information that relates to who the victim is. If there is a suspect or a person who was arrested, that information is not made available as part of this application. This is just what you're saying. It's just the fact that a report of a crime was taken at that particular date and time.
And have you had any feedback so far from the general public on this? What's been the response, or is it too early to tell?
It's probably too early. I did get some initial feedback from people that took a look at the application when we initially released it to the public, thought that it was a really great tool, really something informative. Some of them were actually business people in the city that were looking in to see whether or not they could actually bring that into their communities where they live outside of the city. So we're looking forward to what it may bring. Yeah,
it's a great another example of how technology can be used to really enhance people's lives, and especially the operations of the government body. Well, if people wanted more,
the effort between 1945 and 1948 that killed tens of thousands of Koreans, and that basically Syngman Rhee's Army and Police force were absolutely loaded with Koreans who had been collaborators with the Japanese occupational regime during the Second World War. This had a lot to do with what proved to be the outcome of what we now know today as the Korean War of 1950. That really can't be understood unless we look at 1945 to 1948 and also understand that despite the very principled efforts by people like Republican Senator Robert Taft and Congressman Howard Buffett of Iowa, also a Republican, that Harry Truman got the war that he wanted, and Harry Truman had plenty of advance warning of this North Korean attack. It was not the surprise attack that he claimed, and Truman basically committed us to a major involvement in Southeast Asia without congressional authorization. This should suggest something, of course, in terms of the dangers of what we're now doing with people like Donald Trump and Rex Tillerson and Mike Pence. The second thing is, again, predictably, these North Korean nuclear capabilities are being totally distorted, totally inflated to the point of absurdity. They do not have anything approaching a legitimate missile that can attack the United States or Hawaii, our 50th state. Of their recent missile tests, the vast percentage of them failed when it even came to striking Japan. And therefore, I think when we look at this whole situation, North Korea is a threat, but they are a threat to South Korea and to the deaths that will ensue, possibly as many as the deaths of a million South Koreans at the hands of North Korea, if the United States should ignite something courtesy of Donald Trump and courtesy of Rex Tillerson and Mike Pence and company, that would end up being a tragedy for both North and South Korea. The United States is not at risk, but our so-called South Korean allies are very much at risk in all of this, and frankly, it would be in their interest for these 28,000 American troops to get out of South Korea and come home, and for there to be some legitimate negotiations between North and South Korea that would involve the United States, Russia, and China. Thirdly, this is a part of a big and very ominous picture that goes well beyond Korea. After all, Donald Trump's America First rhetoric has proved to be a complete fraud. Whether you're reading Pat Buchanan or Paul Craig Roberts, Robert Perry, or Philip Giraldi, this frightening picture is emerging. We have Trump illegally attacking a sovereign government in Syria, putting American boots on the ground of Syria, in Syria illegitimately. The United States continues to be involved in supporting these Sunni Wahhabic extremists in Syria illegitimately and illegally, because both Israel and Saudi Arabia are dragging us around by the nose. When we look at this ongoing buildup of NATO and the forces of the United States fronting Russian borders in Eastern Europe, this is a violation of everything that the first George Bush assured Gorbachev we would not do. This is, in fact, what we are doing. And between those militaristic efforts and our overthrow, participation in the overthrow of a legitimately elected government in the Ukraine, on top of this illegitimate action that we're undertaking to try and overthrow the legitimate and sovereign regime in Syria, suggests that Donald Trump is nothing more than a combination of the Bush empire, the Clinton empire, and Barack Obama.